of the candidates. Let's cross to Washington, D.C. now. I'm joined live by Matt Schlapp. He's a former political director for U.S. President George W. Bush. He's also the chairman of the American Conservative Union. Matt Schlapp, thanks for being on the program again. All right, let's talk a little bit about the front runners here. Ben Carson is now in the lead. Donald Trump also is going to try to come out on top in this debate. What is going to be, do you think, their strategy right now? By the way, here's the latest poll. Carson at 24%, Trump at 23%, Rubio at 12%.
You know, Hal, the first thing is you can't read too much into the horse race numbers, the exact percentages that each of the candidates have. The one thing you can say about this race for sure is that Trump and Carson are at the front. And Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, Carly Fiorina, and the rest of these other candidates, they want to land some punches so that they can be seen by these voters as someone who has a real chance.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, are there, in this case, the Democrats, Hillary Clinton in particular, they're looking at this race right now with Ben Carson and Donald Trump in the lead. And in your opinion, if you were advising them, thinking what?
Well, I think they're scratching their heads because they don't understand how someone like Ben Carson can actually be tying or beating Hillary Clinton in almost all the polls. When you get to those two-person numbers, it's more compelling. And I think, you know, these outside candidates are really capturing a spirit in America that's unusual in the sense that we usually look to candidates who have a lot of elected experience. And in this election, it's kind of the opposite of Hillary Clinton, people who have no elected experience.
Right, but I mean, in two-person race scenarios, pitting Ben Carson against Hillary Clinton, Ben Carson is actually giving Hillary Clinton a run for her money? Are those some of the latest numbers?
Oh, yeah. In almost all the polls, they're tight, but he's leading or they're tied. So the Ben Carson phenomenon, the Donald Trump phenomenon, it's not just a Republican phenomenon. There's a real spirit in this country to try out new people, to try out a different kind of model for who should be the next president. And it's causing complete havoc on the Republican side.
Now, I don't have to tell you this, but this time last election and at this exact stage in the race, do you remember who was ahead in the Republican polls?
Not the person who got the nomination, and you're a good journalist because you know that people like Newt Gingrich and Herman Cain and others led the field. And, you know, it's very rare in Republican politics to have a candidate lead from the beginning to the end. And so you've already seen Ben Carson start to overtake Donald Trump. I wouldn't be surprised if you see another candidate take the lead for a while. It's like I said, it's a little chaotic, but that's okay. That's how democracy works.
So, Matt, it was Herman Cain at this stage in 2012 who was leading the field. Let's talk a little bit about Jeb Bush. He has a very recognizable family name. You, of course, were political director for George W. Bush. He's not doing well. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. Now, I want to show our viewers a new ad, a new campaign ad where he's portrayed in this kind of go-getter rock and roll kind of way with a soundtrack as well. That's kind of a rock and roll soundtrack. Let's watch it for just a moment, and then I'll get your thoughts.
When I left, there were $9 billion in reserves. We reduced the state government workforce by 13,000. The one thing that Barack Obama and I would say Hillary Clinton in their philosophy, the people of their ilk, have proven is that the progressive agenda run amok has failed. What I proved as governor was that you can cut spending and still prioritize towards the things that matter.
All right, when you see a campaign ad like this one, do you think it's going to help him?
Yeah, I do. I think he has to tie his conservative record as governor of Florida with what he wants to do for the country. The only thing I'd like to see him do is to step even further into issues that conservatives care about. Jeb Bush defunded Planned Parenthood. Jeb Bush stood by Terry Schiavo's bedside. Jeb Bush made sure that the Second Amendment and our gun rights were protected. So I'd like him to stay on this theme. It's the only way he's going to resurrect as a candidate.
Let me ask you something, and I think many of our international viewers would want to ask you this question as well, Matt. As I mentioned to our viewers, you were political director for George W. Bush. Let's talk a little bit about Ben Carson and Donald Trump in particular, because they're not mainstream candidates. They're not career politicians. And to an international audience, particularly some of the things that these two candidates say, Ben Carson, for instance, on how pyramids were built by Joseph and used for grain storage. I mean, things that sound outrageous or in some cases actually very ignorant of historic facts. How are they doing so well among Republicans? What is their appeal exactly?
Because they're not seen as professional politicians. They're not seen as particularly polished. The electorate is forgiving them when they make faux pas and mistakes, and they're cutting them some slack because they look at the problems that we have in our country. They look at the policies of Barack Obama, which are so progressive and so far to the left, more left-wing than any other president in my lifetime, and they look at that and they're having a reaction to it and saying, we've got to stand up to Obama and we've got to try a different type of model, somebody who will actually say no to the left. And so what's happening in America is a very strong ideological disagreement politically, more so than we've seen in a long time.
All right, Matt, I've got to quickly ask you, who do you think has the best chance at beating, if indeed Hillary Clinton is the nominee for the Democratic Party, who do you think has the best chance at beating her? And I know you want a Republican to win, obviously. Yeah.
Look, I do. I think there's something compelling about Carly Fiorina nominating a woman to take on another woman. I think it would be great for this country, and I think Republicans and Carly would do great under that scenario. But there are 3 or 4 of our candidates who are beating Hillary in the head-to-head contest, so I think Republicans have a great chance.
All right, Matt Schlapp, thanks very much. Good talking to you, and thanks for joining us on the program. And on Tuesday's show, we talked about the controversy surrounding Starbucks abolishing Christmas